Thanks everybody for joining me this evening. I was gonna say this morning or afternoon again. Don't know when I am. We're just doing a very quick Bluebeam webinar today. I'm trying to do a bit of a snappier one. I just want to get you guys a good update on the latest features of Bluebeam and a lot of the recent changes, particularly around Bluebeam Cloud, as I mentioned there on that screen. Bluebeam Clouds have gone through a few changes. We want to show the new side of how it works. It's quite simple if you're familiar with Bluebeam projects and sessions and studio, but if you're not, that's okay. I'm going to cover a quick introduction to Bluebeam Studio as well, because it is a bit of pre-knowledge for the new cloud system anyway. So yeah, we'll cover everything up to that point, as well as some of that new stuff that just goes along with Bluebeam Cloud. So we'll cover all those points. But as it says in the top right, please familiarize yourself with that Q&A function. If you do have any questions throughout, feel free to chuck them in whenever. I'll, depending on the question or the timing, I might answer it on the spot for you if I can. Otherwise, yeah, we'll get to it eventually. But let's get straight into it. I'm not normally known for my brevity, but I've worked on it. I want to get this information to you as quick as possible. Send you home happy. On to the next one. Cool. So just a bit about us again. So Archons, we're one of Bluebeam's platinum providers, specifically here in the ANZ region. So just because Bluebeam is a US-based company, we service the ANZ area and provide, Bluebeam training, consulting, webinars, all that sort of stuff, demos, demonstrations, all sorts of things on the software. So we sort of look after the ANZ region for them. And again, just a bit of background knowledge there. Massive, the Monoyo Group is a massive conglomerate, so global company. But yeah, straight on. So the agenda for the day, I'll break it up into three sort of parts. The first section, I just very quickly want to go through some of those new things with Bluebeam. Just a bit of an info dump on the new features and changes that you should be aware of. And then part two, we'll just go into Bluebeam Studio and Sessions, describe what they are, what they do, in a short and sweet, just to get the picture, because that Bluebeam Studio knowledge is important for understanding cloud. And yeah, once that is done, we can go straight on to the last phase, being the actual cloud aspect. So what we're going to be discussing, what we're after, the key thing here, that brand new feature. So the most exciting sort of new stuff on that side. So yeah, again, we'll get straight into it. Chuck the questions in the chat if you have any as we go. So just to start, I've got the list here of all the most notable recent updates. So just to keep you guys aware of some of these things, if you aren't already. The first one I'll quickly show you because it's nice and it's a bit fun. The dark mode. Those of you who use AutoCAD will be relieved to finally have dark mode to easy reduce that eye strain. Some important notes here, specifically as well, the plugin support. So for Revit 2025 and AutoCAD 2025, the plugin support now exists for that. And then some improvements for other languages. And then that dot point there, the improved sharing experiences for studio sessions and projects. There's a very small couple of little changes that we can show you. Part of that is indicates the cloud service, but I'll quick over to the programs to cover a few of those points. So for dark mode, and we're sitting here in Bluebeam, we're all hopefully mostly familiar with this, but the dark mode is super easy to get to. It's a new option here at the bottom right. The shortcut's also Control-3, so you can flick over to dark mode nice and easy. It's compatible with almost every single PDF. I've never had an issue so far with compatibility, and you can see the markups still appear pretty much the same way. Despite the change. So it's it's an easy way to work, easy to flick in and out. So just reduce that dark white screen that we're looking at, dark white, bright white screen we're looking at. So that's just the dark mode. Nice to know about, easy bit of quality of life change. But the other one is just the studio change that it mentioned, but we'll get into that when we actually start talking about studio. Just to go through the last few of these points. The statuses keyboard shortcut, I did mention that in a previous webinar, but just to bring it up again for those that might have missed it, statuses now have those keyboard shortcuts, which makes it a lot easier and simple to use. So for those of you aware, we'll pop back in and do a quick explanation of this piece as well. For any markup you do place, you've got the status option. So even if I just want to put a quick arrow pointing to this staircase and I want to say, remove staircase, bang, get it out of here. We can apply a status. So the status is here in your markups list. Come back to me. There she is. There's this markup there. It doesn't have a status yet, but you right click on your markup and you can click set status, and then you can do for approval, for example. Those statuses are customizable in here under manage status, under that volume mixer button. And then you can create your own status types. So you can do a red line or a review. So if we turn just that review one on, and down here again, we can add one, add a brand new name to it. And then on the right-hand side, you can modify or add the individual states to the side as well. So they're completely customizable. But to get to the main point here for review, if we just leave that one on, they actually have those shortcuts now. So you can see there's Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift 3 next to each of these. So I can then click on a markup, Shift 1, and then it'll go review. Shift 2, it goes rejected. Shift 3, cancelled. Shift 4, completed. So you can set those statuses nice and easy. Again, this becomes more useful when you've got a drawing with a ton of points on it. A ton of markups, rather. Let's crack open a quick one. Different set for the architectural set. We go to the first page. If there's lots of markups, you can see you can go through Shift 2, Shift 2, Shift 2, and just go through and change those statuses nice and quick for multiple at once. So a good way to use that data system a bit more efficiently now. So worth pointing out. Just for the remainder of these points, again, just some other ones to read through, but language support. One keynote that might be important for many of you is that virtual machines, the review in virtual machines now has improved support in particularly non-persistent virtual machines. So previously it was a bit of a problem, but if that's something that can help you out nowadays, it's worth having a look at that. But anyway, yeah, those are a lot of those main points. I just wanted to cover those off so you're familiar. We'll get straight to the next point. So we're going to talk about studio sessions and projects now, just because it's the main component that Bluebeam Cloud actually uses nowadays. So everything in the cloud service runs out of projects or sessions. The difference between the two and what they are, again, a quick breakdown for those that aren't aware. The sessions are, again, both of them are unlimited storage, but for each of these, it's only up to a gig per file on sessions, because sessions are actually a live collaborative space. So it's kind of a comparison between Google Drive, Google Docs sort of thing. Studio sessions is a place where multiple people can work on the same PDF at the same time. So you can jump in, you can place a comment, place a markup, someone else can watch you do it in real time, and they can leave markups near yours, etc. It's kind of like a virtual workspace. You can all be on the same PDF at once. Projects, in comparison, is a bit different. It's more of a Google Drive in the sense that it's like a document storage system. It uses that check-in, check-out system instead. So multiple people can work on one document, but only one at a time, where I have to check out the file, work on it, do that side of it. But yeah, hopefully you've had a chance to read through some of those points in terms of what it can do. But nothing better than seeing it in action. So I think it's best we just jump into Bluebeam again and go through these points here and go straight to Studio. I might just close off the rest of these now that we're sort of done with them. Don't need any of you. Well, let's not worry too much about it. So Studio on the left, this panel is just like that little house sort of symbol. It opens up the Studio panel. If we drag it off to the right here, we've got the two different sides here. So this is projects on the left. It's like they're both kind of like chalkboards. The sessions is more of a whiteboard. And then the left-hand side is a bit of a box symbol. This is where all the projects are stored. You can see I've got quite a few of them here. The top left notably is that sessions server. So there's 6 to choose from. I can't count. That's 5. There's 5 to choose from, but there is one on Australian soil. So for the Aussies, it does meet those data security requirements that you probably do have in terms of that data sovereignty. So rest easy, it's all going to be on Aussie soil. The data isn't getting sent overseas. The other ones, you can use them multiple at once in a sense. So if you want to work with someone in the US, you can actually switch to the US studio server just by clicking on it. You just create another sort of login, but it's the same username, it's the same everything. So it's not a big deal, but you can work off any studio session server. So I'll quickly go, I'll do create a project and a session to show how they work and what they are. But to start with the project, very simple to add. If you get invited to a project, it'll appear under that not joined one. You'll see any invited projects. Any you've joined, you can just select. Sycamore Avenue, for example, just a pretend project for a residential job. You can click in and explore all the files for this one and find whatever you're sort of looking for. You can sort of see quite simple, won't over explain it, just like a Google Drive, works the exact same way as File Explorer. Go through and dig through, find the files you're sort of after. It's an online data storage system. It does have the controls in there, so you can click here to get the customization options. So you can explore the user access and invite and deny people from joining. And then you also have permissions. So for each person, you can do it individually or you can do it by groups, but you can invite different groups. Like my team, you can make a group that'll have a bunch of emails associated with it. And then you can actually control the permissions. So you can say, people on my team are allowed to manage permissions. They're allowed to manage user access. Whereas, the sales guys or the other generic attendees actually will have all of these denied, and you can specify all the permissions down to that level. The same with folders. You can go to my team, and even for the client folder, you can maybe click hidden so that your internal team can't see the client's content. And then in the internal project folder, you can make it read, write, and delete for your team. So you have very, very specific control over what people can access in a project. Again, you dig down to a PDF, and you also do have revision history, which a session does not. You can't go back to previous versions of a session, but you can do that in a project. And finally, if you do open a PDF out of a project, you do have to check it out and edit it. You can't edit it side by side or with multiple people at once in there. It's just a PDF here, and at the top left, you see that lockbox where you can then check out the file. Nice and simple. And then when you're done, you pretty much just close the file. It'll save itself and give you the window to check it back in. Leave comments if you want, update the version, all that. But again, quite simple to quick check in and it'll affect it there. At the bottom left of the project as a whole, you can see things that are currently checked out. So you can see if other people are currently hogging the files or not. But yeah, quick look at projects. The very last thing that's worth noting is if you do have something that's too big for an email, even if someone doesn't have Bluebeam, you can share files with them using a project. So I wanted to share this PDF outwards. I can right click on it and click share a link. And there's some controls we can do. We can require a password if you want to be strict with it, and we can restrict it to a 24-hour lifetime. So the link won't work after 24 hours. And then you can flatten it so all your markups are flattened. A few different controls there, but once you click OK, it'll produce that link, which we can take to an email, put it in an email, the client or whoever can put it in that link there and put it in Google. Produces just a download button straight away so they can download that file without having to have Bluebeam themselves. So it's nice and handy. It's a good little tip to be aware of if you're, maybe you're not using projects to manage all your files, but sometimes you've got a PDF or a document too big for an email. It's just a nice little workaround worth knowing. So that's a quick look at projects. The second one's going to be sessions. It's similar, but again, it's a bit different in that it's live. The last thing I didn't mention, actually, the good point is a project is also file agnostic. A project can have an Excel file, a Revit file, anything you can think of, whereas a session is only for PDFs. So I'll go to the session, the exact same process, so the exact same system, not joined and joined. It's also got the plus to create a new one, create that new session, add the session name, add any files you want in the session. Super simple. Close these down. But from the session, quite simple. Let's open this one and have a look at it. Once you're in a session, it's the exact same as working with a PDF in Bluebeam, except it's live. So part of the benefit of that is that sessions and being online is it's backed up. This is constantly updating while I place comments. So if I click put the cloud around these bushes and I want to hit remove on them, that'll take place. That'll instantly synchronize. So that's currently updated online. If my Bluebeam crashes or something, that doesn't matter because that markup's online now. It's on the cloud. It's not going anywhere. So it's good for that data security aspect. You can keep that sense of comfort knowing you're not going to lose any work while it's in a session. It's a nice little benefit there because it's not just storing locally or anything. So a small benefit of those sessions. Yeah, constantly updating on that as well. So within there, you do have different options like the statuses and the online. So at the top under attendees, this is everyone that's in the session. Under not joined, you see people that haven't accepted the invite. And then within here, joined, you have the online and offline members. So my colleague Ben currently isn't on here, but if he was, I could go through and filter his markups. I can click that option. You can see everything else grays out. So only the only ones that are active are the ones that Ben has placed. So I can sort of check what people are up to, especially handy from a manager's perspective. And then also within a session, you can add multiple documents. So this is the document we're looking at now. If I wanted to, though, you can upload additional ones to that. Just to go through the rest, because it's a quick introduction. The record in the bottom shows you everything that pretty much happens. It's also just a chat box if you want to type some remarks in there for people to read. You can go ahead and use it as a bit of a chat box. But yeah, the last one's notifications. You can right click on a markup and respond to it. So you click right click and reply, and then you can type into the field that pops up. I've already got one on there. You hover over it and it pops up with the reply that was written on there. So you can communicate a bit internally on the markups themselves. And you can also alert an attendee. So with this right click alert, and then you can choose who you want to alert, like Ben, and then it'll alert that person of the markup. When it looks like one of these in your notifications, and you do get an alert, and you click on it, it zooms you in straight to the what you've been alerted to. Cool. So that is projects and sessions in a nutshell, just to get you that background knowledge. We're going to go straight now into the cloud aspect of that and how that actually fits in. So leaving the desktop version behind, we'll go straight to brand new version, brand new opening Google Chrome. The easiest way, we'll just type app.bluebeam.com.au and it might log me all the way in. Maybe, there we go, at least I get to run through this. But it logs in the exact same as your Bluebeam ID. So it's completely linked to your desktop account. Just back in Bluebeam for a second, you can see the top right. It's got that email address. It's got the version. You can click refresh if you want to check that it's all good. But it's the exact same Bluebeam account as your licensing for the desktop app to get on Bluebeam Cloud here. So you log in and just click next on that one and sign in using your username and password. Please don't be wrong. That would be annoying. Oh, lucky me. All right, perfect. We're in. So that's pretty simple. It's just easy to log in. That's also available before we go forward. It's on the browser, obviously, as we see here via like app.bluebeam.com.au for AU for Australia. It does depend on your licensing. So if you are on like a US license or something, you log in via the US server. But yeah, no worries for us Aussies. So that's good to go. That is logged us in, and you can see the two tabs on the right. You've got projects and sessions available straight away on the browser version. Now this is also these sessions currently are also available on your iPhones and your iOS products, so your tablets, stuff like that. So you can access Bluebeam Cloud on a mobile device, which is quite handy, especially if you've got any work to do with those site visits or site work, that sort of thing. So nice and easy. We'll go into a bit of detail, just a bit of background knowledge. The last thing that's kind of handy to mention, if you're using Bluebeam Cloud as a drafting sort of tool or your kind of your primary workspace because you're on the move a lot, you do have a My Workspace where you can kind of tuck in files and it's not going to store them in a project or a session. It's just going to store them on the cloud itself, where you can sort of work on them there or look at them. So if you're not really using the other one, you can have this kind of intermediate space you can sort of work from. Otherwise, these are probably the best bets anyway, or sessions and projects. You can see the sessions and projects are exactly the same as the ones I had on the software or the desktop version. It's completely synced. So anything you can see on the desktop is the exact same as what you're going to see here. You can't be logged in on both at the same time. So you can't be working on a session from your desktop version and your Bluebeam Cloud at the same time. You do also have the option at the top right to create a new session. So you can add the session name, people you want to invite, and then the documents you want to work off. The same, so under projects, however, that currently isn't one of the options. You just have to create the project on the desktop first. The last thing I'll mention before we dig into some of the other specifics here, at the top right, you've got that username, user area. So you have the ability here, edit account. You just go into the settings here to have a look what we have available. They'll tick over all the sort of standard stuff. You can change, edit your password, update your username and things like that. So nothing groundbreaking, but just to know it's there. And finally, the interesting one that's worth looking at, connected accounts here. So if we look at the connected accounts, this is a handy tool that'll save you a bit of time if you're using one of these options. So you can create a connection that'll let you import files from your online storage devices or accounts, for example, SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Drive, etc. All these options here. So quite simple. I won't click on any of them because it'll bring up some info, but as an example, click on Google Drive, it just asks you to sign in and create that link. So it's quite simple. Keeping in mind, if you do want to create a link to, take your time, that's all good. If you want to create a link to SharePoint or something like that within your company, it will need those administration privileges. So you'll have to work with those people that have those permissions. Cool. I've got a question there. So I'll go back to Bluebeam project for a sec. So it says, when you do you have the ability to share a link to a full project? So if you create project 001, or like in my case, 22 Sycamore Avenue is a project I'm working on, and there's multiple drawings and you want to create a link for the entire folder rather than just one document. The only way to do that is to either copy a link for every file in the folder and sort of just copy them one by one, or to actually share the project with them. So if they have Bluebeam, you can share the project with them as a whole and then actually control the permissions for the folders they can see. So just at the top, let's stick with Sycamore Avenue here. You click on that volume mixer looking button and go to user access and then the plus symbol, and then you can invite that person to access your Bluebeam project and they can see and use everything in there. So if you wanted to share a certain folder with people, you can invite them to the project, and then under permissions, you click on that plus symbol and click on that specific person you invited, and then just deny them everything they're not meant to see. So you go to the right and sort of say, I want them to see the client folder, but not anything here. So you can hide the internal stuff, drop down and client external info, they can read only. So you can share a very specific project file with them if they have Bluebeam. Otherwise, unfortunately, you can't share a folder link. You do have to go through and share a download link for each sort of file. Yeah, that share link only works for individual files. Let's sweet, thanks for the question. Back over here, so we talked about the connected accounts. We'll go into and look at how these sort of operate quickly. So in the studio session to start with, and we'll just jump on a blank one just to have a look. So Bluebeam Cloud at the moment, it doesn't have all of the same tools, obviously, as the desktop version, because it's a browser version of the software. It's not going to be the exact same, but it does have a lot of the basic tools. So you've got your clouds, your vector pens, also kind of like a 3-in-1 all you can eat sort of tool. You can create, your shapes, polylines, straight lines, typical things like that, as well as enclosed shapes. So it kind of does kind of like a 3-in-1. Does all sorts of things there, pretty easy to use, very intuitive. And then the text box, of course, pretty typical. And your arrows, your callouts, and your highlighter, as well as finally your images. So you can upload photos, that sort of thing. I don't have anything particularly. I don't want to open anything, get in trouble. Who knows? I have some audits, some receipts and photos of client information. I'm not going to risk it. But yeah, lots of different options anyway. Tons of tools here. You can invite or you can add tool chests the same as you have in Bluebeam. So if you go back to the program here and go to your tool chest panel, some of you are familiar probably with using tool chests. For those not, you can pre-save basically markup types. So this is the exact same as the markup tool, except it's pre-saved to be purple. Nice and simple. But also you can pre-save symbols like parking lot symbols, more complicated stuff to save in your tool chest. So these tools can be actually shared to the cloud as well. Just go onto the cloud, and on top of your tool chest option here within the tools, you can click on that plus symbol and do create tool set or upload. So upload if you've got one already that you've made. We can update or upload the one we were just looking at, which is that site tool or parking, site and parking, something. Site and parking, yeah, upload that one. And it'll chuck itself on the cloud with us. It's already on there. Maybe I've rehearsed this once, perhaps. But that'll upload. You can see the options in here. The architect review is all in red, whereas the contractor review is the yellow markup. So a few of those options just helps you color coordinate, makes your drawings easier to understand. So those are available on the cloud as well. If we scroll down, the reason I use this tool chest is you can see some of them don't work. So there's obviously some tools that don't translate perfectly to cloud yet because they're not compatible. So sketch to scale is one of them. We can still bring symbols across, so you can see a lot of the complicated symbols do work, which is still pretty new and very flash, that you're able to get the complex geometry on a cloud sort of service. Hello. There we go. Including everything up to even like a detailed sort of car. If that'll stop doing that, there we go. So lots of detailed options are available. It's just you'll see all these ones that are blocked out, like with the question marks on them. They're typically tools with dimensions, measurements, sketch to scale, or count tools. So all of those ones are a bit difficult and incompatible currently with cloud, but a lot of the complex geometry, the markup types are still very much functional. So yeah, those tool chests are quite handy to know, and they're very, very functional on the cloud as well. It makes things easier to understand. Some of these examples here, so these are issues. It's an example of how Bluebeam can be used for those site issues sort of markups. If we go to a separate project, just one that makes a bit more sense, this one here. Over to a different session. So this is the live studio session still. And again, you can see it works the exact same way as the desktop. It just brings up the PDF and scroll through the pages and yeah, use it as per normal. The bottom left, so this is the pop out for like your thumbnails panel essentially, where you can flick through the drawing and explore the drawing, what's available. You can't rearrange and move the pages. That's normal in any session. Different in a project, you can move those things around. And finally, on the right, you do have your markups list, essentially, where you can click through everything that has been placed so far in the session. So yeah, your markups list is still accessible. Nice quality of life thing. Finally, the last thing I was just mentioning was getting, what was I saying? Takeoff, sorry, the site issues. Yeah, so some of these pre-made tools, for example, here are a good example of that, where you can use this tool to go on site and point out issues. So you may be on your phone looking for doing some defects lists, things like that. You create these tool chests for your common issues, and it makes it really easy to just tap on your phone where the problems are. You can put in carpentry issues, go down the electrical problems, and put them on the page quite simply. So it's quite easy to use on your phone with just one tap without having to, type in keyboard and all that stuff that's a bit tedious on the phone. So it's a pretty handy way to do that. You can zoom all the way in, go to the room you're marking up, and then put those indicative symbols on there to show where the issues are. Just one way that Cloud is commonly used. So that's the overview quickly of how sessions works. The last one is projects, but again, it's not very different. It's very intuitive. It works the same way. So you go to your studio projects, and you can open up, for example, that same one we were looking at, Sycamore Avenue, and dig all the way down. So it's in the client folder, or actually, let's go to internal and designer, and then design changes to be confirmed. And we can open that PDF. Let's view it straight away. And again, it works the same way as the check-in, check-out system. So you do have the revision history accessible even on the cloud. You can open previous revisions and see what's changed between the check-ins. Now, if we take a step back a couple of times, find another example. One more. Estimating and maybe builder. Should be an RFI. There we go, this one. This PDF as well. So the same sort of thing. Anything is viewable. This one's currently checked out to me. You can check it. I'll check it in so I can start the process from the beginning. But the exact same way in here, where you click on that lock symbol, it'll immediately just check it out, and we can start editing and placing markups on here and doing whatever you want, editing it, etc. Once we are done, though, scroll through the document, you've got your little RFI. Once you are done, you click on the lock again. You can just check it in without saving if you just didn't do anything, but if you have saved it, good to leave a comment describing what changed before you check that file back in. It's now updated and saved. Those changes, again, once it's synced back on that project, that'll be exactly the same when you go back to the desktop version, and that files, everything will be the exact same in your Bluebeam project as it was on the online now. So it syncs identically. It's pretty seamless. It just makes it easy. You go on site, anything you do on site will then be readily available straight away on your computer as well. Even if you're just doing a visit, you're visiting the other office or someone else, you can take your drawings with you. So very handy, easy to share, and makes collaboration a lot easier as well, this cloud service. One of the points that is worth mentioning is those studio sessions. A cool way to use them, or a feature that isn't well known, is the ability to actually share a session with someone that doesn't have a Bluebeam license. They have what's called a unpaid collaborator license. So you can create a studio session, upload your drawings to it, and then invite someone that doesn't have a Bluebeam license. They will be able to place basic markups on your session with you, which is quite handy if you're collaborating, communicating with a client or with external people that don't have the same tools as you. You can kind of give them free access to a little bit of Bluebeam. They can come on, especially now with cloud, it's a lot easier. They can just jump on the online session, place some very basic markups, and communicate with you unpaid without having to have a license using your own session. So it's one thing that's worth pointing out. It's a bit impossible to demonstrate in a webinar, but without having like two other people involved. But use your imagination. Pretty simple to just grab your session, invite those people to it, manage the documents, invite with that share button at the top right here. So share that session, add their emails in, and then they can access that session with you and contribute with you as well. So yeah, back to my, back here. I'll leave this information up for a second. I'll come back to that previous page after I've sat on this one for a bit, but there it is. I hope that was informative. Again, trying to speed things up a bit, trying to get you that information nice and quick so I'm not wasting anyone's time. But hopefully that was informative and gave you a good idea of what Bluebeam Studio projects and sessions can do, especially now with the new cloud feature that improves that accessibility really highly. So pretty exciting new little features, and that's constantly being updated. So definitely keep your eyes on this area. It's definitely developing rapidly, so definitely worth keeping an eye out. Again, there's recordings of all the webinars at that website below, as well as the old website when we were just Cloud A2K, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of Bluebeam webinars on there, but we're archives now. That's where all the new ones are going. So if you want to run through this one again or share this, feel free to grab it on that website. And if you do have any questions about Bluebeam or licensing or any way you want to get more support or training out of your program, you can always reach out to us at Archons and we can organize some training for your office, for your workplace, that sort of thing. So yeah, any questions around the licensing software, that sort of thing, put them through those email addresses. Otherwise, I'll stick around. Thanks for joining me. You're all great audience. If there's any other questions, stick them in and I'll try and get to them. But otherwise, yeah, appreciate having you all. Thanks for attending. And I'll go back just quickly and sit on this page in case there's anyone that wants to just suss out the information there.